Humanity is being kind to people, and along with the 2 ears and 1 mouth, it's thinking less of yourself and thinking more of humanity as a whole.
And welcome everyone to another episode of Humanity 2.0 podcast, where we are discussing humanity with fellow humans. Today we have Bart Merrell, who is an international entrepreneur. He's an author. He's a presenter of Monetize Your Mindset. My goodness, what can't you do?
I don't know, but I know my wife says there's a lot.
How long have you been married for?
I got married in 2000, so 25, almost 26 years now.
Just a little more than me. I got married in 2014, but it feels like 20 plus years. So I like to kick off things a little bit out of the ordinary and learn a little bit more about you, but not as it pertains to today's show. I want to know, what are you just notoriously bad at? A hobby, a skill? What are you bad at?
I graduated in accounting with an accounting degree, but my intentions were to get in the FBI. And then when I got in the FBI, I was going to pivot over to chasing serial killers instead of doing accounting work, because you can do that. And I am not good at accounting, and I didn't enjoy accounting, but that was just a means to an ends to get into the FBI. And anyway, it didn't happen. We'll probably get into that later on the show. I didn't make it in the FBI. And so I pay someone a lot of money to do my accounting for me.
Well, you know, the FBI's loss is our gain. I'm just going to say that.
Right?
Now, what are you good at that nobody knows about?
That nobody knows about? It's starting to get out that I'm a very good speaker. At least I think I am in my head. That's another thing my wife will, whenever I get off a podcast or get off the phone with someone or get off a training call, she's like, how can you speak so long? She's like, they don't want to listen to you. They do. And so I'm a good speaker. You know, here it is. I also have a dog business, a dog training business. And my Google Ads guy who tracks everything for me, he says, you keep your potential client on the line for longer than anybody that I know. He says, you need to do a class on how to keep talking to your potential clients. I says, I don't talk. I ask questions about their dogs and I just listen. And I will get off the phone with a client sometimes and they're thanking me and they're breaking up. They're in tears because I listen to their problems. And so most people, because I speak too much, don't know that I'm actually a good listener.
I feel like you can receive a lot more information having those longer, meaningful conversations. So I'm sure that you learn a great deal about these clients and also how to work with them, how to communicate with them on whatever services they need that you're offering.
Like people say sometimes, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
That's so true. When I was growing up, my mom told me all the time that I talk too much. In school, they said, you talk too much. Everywhere I went, you talk too much. And then podcasting came along in 2012, at least for me. And I was like, oh, this is why I talk so much. So there we go. Again, welcome to Humanity 2.0. I am so curious about your outlook on humanity and your personal perspective. And what I have for you today is 8 degrees of humanity, which is 8 questions about humanity. Are you ready for the first one?
Let's go.
All right. So first one is, when you hear the word humanity, what is the first image or story or feeling that comes to mind to you?
So humanity is being kind to people. And along with the 2 ears and 1 mouth, it's thinking less of yourself and thinking more of humanity as a whole. And I believe that my dad, he was the epitome of that. He helped so many people, even when he had his own issues to take care of. If someone came to him in need, he was always willing to jump in and help, whether it was physical labor or monetary or just someone to talk to. And so I think it's being able to focus less on just you and paying attention to the world around you.
That's a great answer. Now, your dad his willingness to help others and to step outside of himself, was that inherent, or was it something that he learned from his father or his surroundings?
So when it comes to my dad, I believe it was the time that he grew up in. It was the World War II time, and so you had to think about the others. Also, so my sister that was the next closest to me, I'm the youngest of 7. When I was 5 and she was 10, she was hit in the head with a baseball bat at school on accident, and she ended up dying. And watching my dad go through this, even as a little kid, the things that I can remember really, really stuck to me, because the kids at school, so the person that swung the bat was her best friend. And the kids at school were calling this friend of hers killer and a murderer. And I remember this little girl coming to my house just in tears saying, I didn't mean to. And at a time when my dad needed comforting himself, he needed to comfort this little girl. And I remember him, as he was further on in life, as I got older, he got older, and he was in some religious leadership positions. And then as a businessman, he would always talk about this. And he says, nobody wants to lose their daughter. But I learned empathy from having to go through that situation and having to deal with having to comfort that little girl when he was in such sorrow himself.
Uh-huh.
And so going through that just taught him to look outward to other people, even when he needed stuff himself. I'm sure that was a big part of it, but also his generation of having to, potentially give their life and go to war. It just made them more giving of people.
Yeah, that's very true. In time of war, that is what you're thinking of. You're thinking of the greater good, the greater whole, and making sure that everyone around you is safe. And so you go and do what you need to do to help increase that initiative. I'm sorry. That's an absurdly huge loss. I can't even imagine. How does your family keep her memory alive?
We had so my parents had now passed as well, but we had this picture, this drawing of her maid that put her in like her late teens, early 20s. And that was always up on the wall. And then, of course, when her birthday comes around, everybody would mention it. But a lot of it is just the memories of dad and mom having to go through that. You have 2 choices. It can be a stumbling block or it can be a stepping stone. And my dad used it as a stepping stone. My mom used it as a stepping stone. They were, like I said, they were people that just cared for other people. They were the place to go when you needed something. It was just, I remember it as a kid growing up that anytime someone came over, if we were eating dinner, hey, have a seat. You want some dinner? Mom would go get a plate and share whatever she made. I just remember that feeling of how everybody was welcome. And that's kind of, I don't know if it's necessarily her memory or how she was remembered. The thing I remember is the big portrait of her that was of her future self that was on the wall.
That's beautiful. I lost my mom in January, and I'm curious about other people who've lost their parents. Do you find yourself having moments still, even after they've passed, where things are just a little bit harder? Maybe it's like a pop-up of grief that you thought you were done, but it wasn't done. Like, does that still happen for you?
And so with me, my dad was someone I would bounce ideas off of, business ideas, and go to for maybe some guidance. And then mom was mom. Mom would do anything for you. And whenever dad died, mom came to live with us, and we took care of her for the last 5 years of her life. And so the things that I remember with dad, I miss the call. I miss, hey, let's talk about business. And then with mom, while she was here, there were times that I could have spent, more time with her than I did. And I sometimes have a regret maybe that I didn't spend more time with her. But we did spend a lot of time with her because she was here. So I'd come in, and my office that I'm in right now is actually where her sitting room was. And she has this big, beautiful view of the mountains out here. And I would remember her talking with people back home because I grew up in southern New Mexico. Now I'm in Utah, and she came up here not happy that she was here, but then I would hear her talking on the phone with people back in New Mexico, talking about this view that she sits and gets to look at every day. And so I just remember things like that when it comes to, I miss being able to, hey Dad, let's talk this through. Am I thinking right? And then with Mom, she was just always happy and always willing to take care of you. One of the things Mom, as I was growing up as a kid, like a teenager, she would come in and say, hey, what do you want for breakfast? And she would make me almost anything I want. I tested her once and I said, I want steak and eggs. She's like, well, you ain't getting steak and eggs. But, so just things like that I miss. And there is a song out there called Just Checking In. And it's about that. It's about your dad used to call you and used to have conversations, and maybe you were a little bit too busy. And now that he's gone, you miss that. And the singer talks about having a recording on his phone of his dad calling, hey, it's me again, just checking in. Even just thinking about it, I'm getting teary-eyed.
Making me teary-eyed over here.
But it's on my playlist on my phone, and it's just really reminds me of my dad and my relationship.
Your dad was a cool human being, and your mom sounds like she was so nurturing and loving, and her love language was doing for others.
Yes, absolutely.
That's amazing. I have a voicemail from my mom, and it's last winter. No, it's this winter or whatever, before January. She said, make sure that you're careful when you're driving in the snow, because I live in Texas and it doesn't snow a lot. But she was like really concerned about me being careful driving in the snow. And she just kept repeating it, like, make sure you're careful. Don't drive too fast because, you can get hurt, and make sure you're careful. And it just reminded me how she was always worried about us, but just more so in like that motherly way, like in general, not specifically like, oh, you're going to have an accident, but just generally, right? And growing up, we weren't very close. I did a lot of raising myself. So then when I got older, we spent more time together. But I live 5 hours away, and my siblings were closer to her, and they were closer to her throughout our entire lives. So I have a similar feeling of I wish that I got to spend more time with her. And before she passed, she was supposed to come up here and visit and possibly come to stay with us for, however long. And so I have those feelings, but I also have a really good feeling from her nurse, who told me a story. After she passed, she asked me if I got an award or congratulations on this award that you got. And I was like, what award? And she said, your mom said that you got an award. And I was like, no, I don't have an award. Not at the moment. Maybe she knows something I don't. But yeah, she was always so proud of us. She was always so proud of whatever I was doing. Didn't matter what it was. I could have crossed the street at the red light just right in time, and she'd be proud about that. That's what I take for sure. So speaking of family, there are folks all around us who remind us of our shared humanness. Can you tell me about a time where someone was very empathetic or compassionate, other than your parents, maybe like a total stranger, something that you witnessed out in the world where you said, oh my God, that's humanity at its best?
So that's an interesting question. There is one person that stands out. And so I got a gift card to Red Robin, the hamburger place. I'd never been to Red Robin. All I knew was Red Robin.
Yum.
Red Robin, yum.
And so I took my wife. We went to Red Robin, and we were going to go there for lunch. And the hostess took us to our seat, and it says, okay, Vonique will be taking care of you. And about that time, here comes Vonique. And she set us down, and she asked, okay, would you like anything to drink? And I looked at the menu, and I'm a Pepsi guy, and all they had was Coke. My wife says, I just take a water with a lemon. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to make you go next door and get me a Pepsi, so I'll just take a water with a lemon too. And she went on about her way and came back and took our order and then went out again. And me and my wife were just kind of sitting in idle chit chat. And here comes Vonique from across the room. She has her hand behind her back and a big smile on her face. And she went up to the food court and got me a Pepsi.
No.
And she sits it down on my desk and says, here's your Pepsi. And then she went away and was going to go get our orders. And I told my wife, I said, I wonder if we're going to get charged for that because technically I didn't order it. And she's like, well, of course you're going to get charged that. No, we didn't get charged for it. And it just really stuck out to me because I was just being funny. Maybe it was because I was being funny that she decided she would go do that. It was just, it made my week, my month, my year. This was several years ago. I still talk about her. She's in the book. She's in my book about how to stand out and go the extra mile. In these days, you don't even have to go the extra mile. Go the extra half a mile and you're going to stand out above everybody else. And so I talk about her to this day.
I love that. That's amazing. I bet she had no idea that she'd be in your book one day. She was probably thinking, game on, buddy. That's what she was thinking. That's so awesome. Yeah. I worked in a bookstore eons ago in my early 20s. And I remember I was ringing up some customers. This is Borders books when they existed and life was good. And I told the customer, oh, have you heard that album that you're purchasing? It's the best album. I want to buy it, but can't really afford it, but it's the most amazing album. And then sure enough, they come back around and the person, throws the album and they just bought it. I'm like, are you sure you want another copy? And they're like, no, that's for you. And they just bought me this album. Awesome. I was like, what? Till this day, same thing. Still think of it to this day. Just stranger, just thinking, you know what? You love this. And let me just help you have that.
And so let me tell you a little bit more about Vonique. She was married and they were going through fertility issues. And so when she did that for me, she was in the middle of like 180 days of shots, painful shots that they were, every day, I think 2 or 3 times a day, she had to have a fertility shot. Uh-huh. And so her whole body was a pincushion. And she still was able to think of that and think of someone else and do something good for someone else. And so that's where it really stands out and where it just makes me think, okay, I need to do better.
Have you kept in touch with her or have you seen her again?
We're friends on Facebook. And so I follow her. I think she has 2 kids, and I did go interview her for my book before, and I asked for permission before I put her in my book. And I let her know that I'll be talking about her for a long time.
That's awesome.
I went and instead of, I left a tip that goes to everybody, but then I went and got her a movie pass, a movie gift card for the movie that was in the place that we were at, and went and gave that to her for being in my book, but mainly for doing what she did.
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely had a profound effect on you, on your life, on your path. So much that we can do for others. If we just take a moment, it could really impact someone's whole life. So you're a testament of that. Thank you for sharing that. Love and loss seem to define much of our shared experience. Is there a story in your life where one of those taught you something profound about what it means to care deeply for others?
So it would go back to my parents and how, kind of like what you brought up before, how do you deal with when they're gone? Because they're not here now. And I believe they're watching over me. So when my mom died, so my dad used to talk about when his next ship will come in, and it's always about his ship coming in. And so we knew mom was getting close to within the next year or so, and she was ready to go and see dad. And I says, well, mom, when you get up there, would you tell dad to make that ship come in for me? And it wasn't much after her death. It was like a week. And some business deals came through. Some unexpected business deals came through. And I was just like, mom must have got up there and told dad to have that ship come in. That was a blessing to us because she died right around Christmas. And so it was just a blessing to us to have these unexpected things come in, these unexpected things happen. And so it's just like you were saying, missing your mom or your dad and just having that loss. And in my dad's passing, there were lots of people that his business partner came up to me in tears and could barely talk at his funeral and just was expressing how good of a person my dad was. So that's a loss that I feel, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Like I said, I live 5 hours away from my family. And so when my mom passed, my sister was the one that tended to things. And She told me that in the retirement community she lived in, it was like duplexes and they lived, each on their own individually. And so when they were rolling my mom out of her duplex, all of the other residents formed a line on both sides of the sidewalk and they stood there while she, was taken out, and they didn't leave until the ambulance left the parking lot. I was just amazed. I was amazed by how much they loved her and how many friends she had. And similar to your father, I've heard many stories of my mom and how kind she was. She was a nurse in a retirement community in our younger years, and there's no one that didn't love her. She was just a light.
And so I don't live in my community where I grew up, but my sister does. And my sister says that a week doesn't go by that someone doesn't say something good about Dad. We were just talking about that last week, and she just says it's amazing how much good he really did that we didn't even know about. And nobody knew about it, except the person that was in that. And a lot of it we don't hear. So I live, like I said, I lived in Utah, and I was at a church event, and someone walked up to me and says, "Are you Adair Merrill's boy? You look a lot like him." And I'm like, "Well, I actually am." And he said, I remember going to a meeting with a bunch of highfalutin New York bankers, and they walked into the room and they said, "We want to meet this Adair Merrell because what everybody's been telling us, he can walk on water." And I'm just like, "Who are you? I don't even know you, and you're telling me stuff about my dad." Anyway, even up here, I'm probably 1,200 miles away. I am 14 hours away from my hometown. And I'm just like, "Who are you?" And turned out it was like a cousin once removed or something like that would recognize me. That was just another cool story about Dad.
No, that's great. That is awesome to think that someone mentions him at least once a week. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Have you yourself done an act that was so incredibly kind for a stranger that it even surprises yourself?
Can I go the other direction?
Sure.
So this was right after, or was it right out? It was right before Vonique did what she did for me at the Red Robin. I was at a gas pump and it was cold. It was in the wintertime. I had my two dogs in the back of in the back seat of my truck, and a guy pulls up to the gas tank in front of me, their gas stall in front of me. He gets out of his car and he comes walking up to my window. And it's foggy because of the dogs and it's cold. Like I said, it's cold. And so I rolled down my window a little bit, and he gave me some story about needing, "Can you give me $5 to help me get home?" And I wasn't even nice. I just looked at him and I said no. And then I drove away. And then after Vonique did what she did, I recall that it just makes me feel yucky, because at that time I probably had $500 in my wallet. Giving him $5, $10, $20 to fill up his gas tank wouldn't have fazed me.
Uh-huh.
I don't know why I didn't believe him, or the dogs in the back, the cold, the whole situation made me not do it. And even just as I'm driving away, I feel yucky.
Uh-huh.
And then when Vonique did what she did, I guess you can say I repented. So, and I have a different attitude. So I have a different attitude now, and I don't know if it's the right one. But if someone needs something and you can give. If they use it for something that they shouldn't, between them and God, not you. And having that attitude, I did volunteer in a drug rehab center, a 90-day in-house drug rehab center, and I told that story to them in a speech I was giving to them, and I brought Vonique into it, about doing better and standing out and standing up and just being better. And their attitude was different. They says, "No, you give someone like that money, it's going to drugs. It's going. You need to have tough love." But still, my feeling is that's between them and God. I did what I can do. And so I changed to where Now I don't question when someone needs something. It's none of my business. But I learned that from a negative story or a bad feeling or a bad story.
Her act of kindness, it really just unlocked something in you that definitely changed how you perceived every situation thereafter. I'm on the same bus with you. Once you give aid or give help to someone, it's between them and God. I believe that.
But like I said, in the drug rehab center, there's like, no, you need to not enable them because you're doing them a disservice. I don't know how I feel about that. But anyway, so I see someone in need now. And I remember a kid and his mom were in front of a store. Once again, it was similar cold situation, but they were standing out there huddled up. And I was in my car and I waved them over to me. And I said, hey, what's the story to the kid? The kid was telling that, we're from, I think he said they were from Venezuela or something, just needed some help. And so I gave him what I had in my wallet, and I didn't care. I drove away. And actually, I think I drove away and I came back. I left the parking lot and I'm just like, no, I drove around the parking lot, came back to my same parking spot, and I said, hey, come here. And talked to the kid and just said, hey, what's your story? I says, well, I'm glad you're there helping your mom, because he was a teenager. He was a teenage kid. And I said, I'm glad you're here helping your mom. Here, take this and do what you need to do. And I didn't care. I didn't care if they used it for what they needed or used it for something else. If they were lying to me, I didn't care. Things changed from that time. And you can say it's because of Vonique made me really think about how I project myself.
I feel like every opportunity that we have to show up for someone or to do something kind for someone, we should definitely take it up, because we don't know what it's going to do for them or for us. Imagine if everyone had that same outlook. This world would definitely look different. Not to say it can't. I hope they do. Changing tides. When it comes to AI technology, is it messing up humanity or is it helping?
I love it. Okay, so I'm in business world. I'm a side hustle strategist. I help people identify their ideal side hustle, and I use it for business and for fun too. I do things that are posting on Facebook. And so I think at this time in the world, there is no better time to start a side business. Because with AI, you can save time, money, and increase your chances of success if you use it properly. And there's so many, there's stuff that I don't even know that's out there that can help you with your business. That being said, I often say, how stupid are we going to be 2 years from now? Because when it comes to posting on Facebook, business posting or business advertising, I don't even think anymore. I'll ask my chat GPT, who knows all the stuff about me and my business. I say, okay, acting as a direct response marketing researcher and a Facebook specialist or an email copyright person, use everything you know about me and my business and help me write this email or help me write this Facebook post, or give me 5 ideas for a Facebook post. And I look at the ideas. Okay, I like number 3. Give me 5 image ideas for that Facebook post. And then I'll take that image idea. I run over to Jim, create this image. I don't think anymore. I copy and paste. I had a friend of mine come over. His wife is trying to get citizenship and he wanted a reference letter. So I wrote out my letter and I said, let's throw this into Chat GPT, see if we can't make it better. I sounded a lot smarter after that. And they were happy with the letter. And so I love it. I love to use it. Even my friends, they had to put their dog down this last week. And I went to Suno and I wrote them. I didn't write them a song. I created a song, a memorial for their dog. And I'm blown away at the lyric. I put in the characteristics of the dog. His name was Boo. I did like 4 or 5 different songs, and it spit out these songs. I laughed. I cried. It talked about how Boo sometimes stayed home and sometimes needed to roam, and that was Boo. It was just fun stuff. And so I love AI. I believe if you don't learn it now, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
especially if you're in the business world.
Yes. It definitely does wonders for the business world. Everyone uses it to optimize their posts, to cater to a specific audience with certain tones and hashtags, all that good stuff. I noticed though, when you use AI to help edit a video, sometimes it'll look over parts that are really human moments. So it's making a really nice, smooth, cohesive edit, but sometimes it'll take, what we foresee as a very raw human moment, and it'll just throw it out saying like, this is fluff. This is not human. And it's hilarious to watch because it could potentially cut out these moments that we need and that are necessary for us to connect.
Yeah, you definitely can't just let it do its thing and just copy and paste once it's done. All my posts, all the stuff I write, I go back and read it and number one, get rid of the M dashes. And that's sad too, because I used dashes before ChatGPT was even a thing. But if you have them in your stuff now, everybody thinks, oh, that's just chat, so you got to take them out. But you have to make it yours, even though mine knows so much about me and it's very authentically me, or it speaks like it's authentically me. There's stuff that it doesn't get. Here's an example. So I'm making a t-shirt. We'll see if you understand this. I'm making a funny t-shirt for someone who's missing a leg. And actually for my prosthetist, because they want to have their logo on a t-shirt. And I says, no one's going to wear your t-shirt with just your logo on it. So let's make a t-shirt that's funny. And then you'll have your logo here on the arm. And so I have this t-shirt that I've created. This isn't ChatGPT. This is my head because ChatGPT didn't get it. The top has a picture of a one-legged man. On the top, it says, I entered a butt kicking contest. Down at the bottom, it says, now I know. Do you get it or not?
No, right off the bat, no.
So there's a phrase that says, busier than a one-legged man in a kicking contest.
Mm-hmm.
And so I entered a butt kicking contest. Now I know.
Gotcha.
And I actually just pitched it to my prosthetist today, and he's like, yeah, I like that. I like that.
Nice.
But ChatGPT didn't understand. I had to explain that there was because you're disabled. And I'm like, no, that's not why. That's not funny.
Maybe the AI was making a joke with you.
I guess, huh?
What is your message to humanity?
So my whole mantra, my whole thing is what happens when what happens happens. Are you prepared? Whether it's cancer or Christmas, are you prepared? We have Christmas coming around the corner. If you're not prepared for Christmas, you're going to be stressed, meaning financially, mentally, whatever you have to do to get there. This came to me several years ago. So my wife is Japanese, and she goes to and from Japan to visit her family. And while she's there, she gets her health checks done. She called me from Nagoya one time, and she calmly informed me that the initial test indicated cancer and that they took a biopsy. Now, obviously, my first thought was, I could lose my wife. Sadly, my second thought was, we can't afford this. I can't afford to drop everything and be by her side while she goes through whatever it is she's going to go through. And so I felt helpless and inadequate. Once again, an icky feeling because I can't provide for my wife. Now, luckily, after 8 sleepless nights, the biopsy came back negative for cancer and she just have to have surgery. But what if it was? What would have happened? I don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
And so my message is, prepare for when life happens before it happens. Or before it happens so that you have the resources to deal with it, whether it's money. Now, okay, money isn't everything. Or is it? Or is it when you don't have enough? Okay, then it becomes everything. But yet it isn't everything because let's go to Steve Jobs. Had a lot of money. He couldn't save his life with it, but it did give him options. To make him more comfortable as he went through whatever it is he had to need. So money gives you options. And so I say, have the resources to deal with things so that money really isn't everything because you have enough to take care of yourself. And this came to me as I was at that drug rehab center. we did a Toastmasters style club. Are you familiar with Toastmasters? And so we did a Toastmasters style club where we were teaching them how to tell their stories. And Jen was telling her story. She was talking about how until she went to college, she didn't realize everybody else's life wasn't the same. Because when her family was out and about, they acted somewhat normal or mostly normal. It wasn't until that they went back home that the abuse and the neglect happened. And she thought everybody, when they went home, were abused and neglected until she went to college. Now I'm sitting there listening to her, and I just think about the same thing in a different way. If you didn't grow up with my dad or someone like my dad, you don't think like I do when it comes to making money. My dad never set me down and taught me the birds and the bees of business, but he was an example when I watched him. He was a pig farmer, but he didn't just have a pig farm. He'd had his hands in many different things in the agricultural industry. Multiple streams of income from different places. And that just really kicked in to me whenever I didn't get in the FBI. And when I was devastated up at college, I've just graduated with a degree I don't like and I'm not good at. What do I do? And so I just look back on my life sometimes and I feel that I was lucky. But then you look at my life, what are you saying? You're lucky. Your dream job got blown up. You're missing a leg. You know, my dog died. You know, my dog didn't die, but I'm just saying there's so many things that I could say I wasn't lucky. But whenever opportunity presented itself, I was prepared to take action, and I took action. Tanika says luck is when opportunity and preparation meet. I say, and you got to take action, because even if they meet, if you don't take action, nothing happens. And so I just think people need to be prepared. And that's when I was listening to Jen and her story, that's when it clicked for me that I got to help people get prepared for when life happens. And that's when I wrote my book, Monetize Your Mindset. It's when I started. I have a workshop that I do that's called Identify Your Ideal Side Hustle Workshop, where I take people through a process to where they recognize the opportunities that are around them, and they pick 1, 2, or 3 to take advantage to take, and okay, let's go try that one first. And I just think people are missing out on opportunities that are all around them, and that if they just pay attention, they can have that financial security, the resources to deal with whatever happens when what happens. So that's my message. Get prepared before it happens.
That's an excellent message. I'm sure many people are going to receive that and perhaps they will get ready. Thank you so much for that, truly. Let's talk about this samurai side hustle. Side hustle samurai is I'm just renaming your stuff. Hiya. I read that you've never had a real job. Is that true? I want to hear all about it.
So my dream job was to get in the FBI and chase serial killers. And when that got blown up, I had my part-time job at college, which was landscaping. And I was devastated. I didn't know what I was going to do. A buddy of mine who worked for a bungee jump company, a bungee tower company, he jokingly asked me, hey, do you want to go back to Japan? Because I'd spent some time in Japan. I spoke Japanese. And I just kind of thought about it a second. Non-jokingly said yes, because they had sold a bungee tower in Japan. They needed someone. Well, the Japanese company requested, do you have someone you can introduce to us that we could, that could contract with us to help us out? And so they made the introduction. I contracted with the Japanese company to come and spend 3 months, and I ended up there 6 months. And I've just never done an employee thing. I'm a 1099 contractor with everything that I've done, except for my own business. I have a Bart Merrell International Consulting, and I get a W-2 from them because I have to. Anything that crosses my path, good, bad, or ugly, I always ask, can I monetize it? And I don't monetize everything, but I always ask the question. I mean, quick example. When I found out my leg was going to have to be amputated, and I had like 5 months before it got amputated. And when the shock and awe was over that your leg's going to go, my thought was, okay, I don't like this. I don't want this to happen, but there's nothing I can do about it. It's going to happen. So how can I monetize it? And so 6 months post-op, I am sitting in my prosthetist's office, and he's doing his thing with, we're working on my leg and doing stuff. And I said, Scott, your competition has a guy, because I talked to him. You don't have a guy. I'm your guy. Meaning his competition had someone that I could talk to and ask questions about what's going to happen to me. And Scott didn't have that guy. And I said, Scott, I'm your guy. And so I am a 1099 contractor with him. I said, Scott, I don't want a job. I don't want to have to come into the office. And so he sends me the people I need to talk to. I call them on the phone and I keep in contact with them. So before my amputation, I went down the YouTube rabbit hole. And there's people who'd gone through it like me that are telling their story and stuff, but they don't have the credibility of the prosthetist. Then you have the prosthetist that are dull and boring and you want to poke your eye out while you're watching them. And Scott's the same way. And I tell him, I have him on camera, so we do a YouTube channel together. I'm like, Scott, you need to be more exciting. You're changing people's lives. You're helping them get back to work. You're helping them do things that they haven't done for a long time, in some cases. In my case, because I got a prosthetic, I was back to training dogs in 3.5 months. And I says, Scott, you're helping people. You need to be excited. And so I can sell him better than he can sell himself. And so I will help him with his marketing, help him make videos, help him go to doctor's office and present. I actually go to doctor's offices for him and present some of his stuff that he has created on his own. If I hadn't thought about it before, when the opportunity came, I wouldn't have jumped. But because I'd already thought about it, I'd been thinking about it for 8-10 months, and the opportunity came, and I just kind of said, Scott, you know what? Your competition has a guy. You don't have a guy. I'm your guy. And then we just negotiated what it was going to be. And like I told myself, I'm not coming into work, but this is what I'll do for this amount of money. And we kind of went back and forth, and we settled on a good spot. And something like that, I say it like this. We all know the saying, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. I say, well, if you're making lemonade, build a lemonade stand and sell the stuff. And so anything that like I said, good, bad, or ugly, I always ask, can you monetize it? That's what I've done my whole life. It's not because I set out to do it. It's because life happened and I had to do something, and I didn't want to do accounting.
If you could give us a little bit more on the story of your leg and how all that came to be, but then also I'd like to follow that up with, does that personal story kind of have a part in what lights you up as an entrepreneur?
So in 2012, I planned a trip. It was a personal development retreat in Canada. I paid for it. It was already on my schedule. I bought my plane tickets. And about a month before I was supposed to go, my wife comes out of her office and she says, you can't go. I'm like, what? Can't go where? You can't go to Canada. It's a bad direction. She's big into feng shui. And I'm just like, I can't live my life on your feng shui. She protests a second, goes back in her office. A few moments later, she's back out. She says, no, it's a horrible direction. This could affect you for the rest of your life. Well, obviously, I didn't listen. I went to Canada. On the last day, I was dropped from a ropes course. I'm up in the air and the belayer says, okay, I'm ready. Just lean back and let go. And I leaned back and let go. And I went down to the bottom, hit my ankle from about 25 feet in the air. And this personal development camp was kind of I know it hurts, but suck it up. You're tough. You can do this. And this was the beginning of the obstacle course. And I finished the obstacle course on my ankle. By the time night came around, I couldn't walk. I had to get up and go pee, and you had to walk to the restrooms to go pee. I couldn't. I crawled out of my tent, peed by my tent, and crawled back in. I had 2 bus rides and a plane ride home the next day. with 2 big suitcases and crutches for someone 5'10". By the time I got back here to Utah, my leg was swollen clear to my knee, and I was running 102-degree fever. But the next day I went to the doctor. The doctor x-rayed it and said it's not broken, it's just a bad sprain. And so I just treated it like a bad sprain, but it was the worst pain I've ever felt. I mean, it was bad. I went to a rehab because they said, okay, it's just a bad sprain. You need to go to rehab. So I went to rehabilitation, and they would put it in one of those ice boots. Anyway, long story short, 2021 came around, and because my ankle wouldn't go like this, it only had like 3 degrees of movement at all. And so my left leg filled up with blood clots. One of those blood clots broke off and went to my lungs, and I was in the hospital with a blood clot in my lungs. After that happened, I spent 3 days in the hospital, almost died. I was like, okay, I need to figure this thing out. And so I had a CT scan done, and my ankle bone was crushed on the back and the front. And so I went to different orthopedic surgeons, and I think I went to 5 of them, and all of them said, out of the 5 reasons I wouldn't give you an ankle replacement, you have 3 of them. And so when ankle replacement was out of the question, they all said, whenever it gets bad enough, meaning whenever the pain gets bad enough, you're going to want to have an ankle fusion. So being a tough cowboy from New Mexico, when the pain got bad enough, I went to the doctor thinking I was going to schedule an ankle fusion. This was late 2023. The radiologist took the first picture. They're not supposed to tell you any of the results that they see. From behind the partition where they're standing, he yells, "Damn, you don't have an ankle bone." I'm just like, oh, this isn't going to be good. Doctor confirmed it. I didn't have an ankle bone. And I'm like, well, what's my options? And he's like, well, your best option is amputation because the only other option is a wheelchair. He's like, as young as you are, you'll take to it, everything. You'll have a better life than you've had for the past 12 years. And that's exactly what happened. But it was a shock, and I walked through the doors to get that amputation. It's the most terrifying thing I've ever done in my life. I walked through those doors knowing that I wasn't walking out, that a piece of me was going to be gone. And so this is an over-exaggeration, but in my head I was thinking it's like the dead man walking to the death chamber. And I know that's an over-exaggeration, but that gives you an idea of what I felt. And so in my head, I'm just like, how am I even going to get through the doors? Someone's going to have to conk me on the head and drag me through. But I did it. And I did it with a good attitude, joking is my release, my comfort. And so as I was walking through the door, I just was walking. In my head, I'm saying peg leg walking. And I did it, and so that's the story. And like I said, once the shock and awe was over, before I had my surgery, before I had my amputation, I already thought, okay, how can I monetize this? What am I going to do to monetize it? And I'm not done. Because going through that is tough, especially if it's an elective. If you're in an accident and it happens and you wake up and it's done, it's tough, but you don't have to think about it. And so going through that, I was like, okay, once I get my prosthetic, I won't be as self-conscious. But until then, I didn't want to go out. At least I thought I wasn't going to want to go out. But once I got home, and I was like home 3 days, and my wife says, let's go for a drive. So we went for a drive, and I drove. And then once I did that, I was just like, okay, I can go get my drink. I can go get my Pepsi in the morning by myself on crutches. Everybody's going to be staring at me. So we bought some funny pajamas that I would wear. One of them had donkeys all over it. It was lazy ass pajamas. And so if I'm wearing something, and the other one was Bigfoot, and it says, I believe, and there's Bigfoots all over my pajamas. Another one was, don't wake the bear, and there's bears all over it. But if I'm wearing something and someone's staring at me because I don't have a leg, in my head, I'm saying they're staring at my funky pajamas. That just made me, like I said, I go through things. I go into my comfort zone, which is comedy, be funny about it. And it helped me through. But some people don't have that. So it's tougher for them than it was for me, probably. And so helping people through that, it's a course on ideas to help you get through. My wife, before I had my amputation, I'm going to bed. We're going to bed, and I brush my teeth and hop in bed, and she's 45 minutes putting creams on her face and doing stuff. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, how come it takes you so long to get to bed? Shut off the light already. Well, now guess what? I have a routine that I have to do every time I get ready for bed to take care of my leg so that something worse doesn't happen. So I'm putting creams and stuff on my leg. Now it takes me a long time to get ready. And so that's how it happened, and that's how I take it. And there's other ways that I can monetize my leg and help other people at the same time.
I love how humor became a big relief for you. I think that's amazing. You've mentioned monetize your mindset, and I've read that part of it is helping people achieve extraordinary success. How is that possible in your program?
I don't do anything. I point out the obvious that's obvious to me because they're sitting right there in it. They don't see it. They need to get their wheels turning. So I just help them do ordinary things for success. And that's just be aware of the opportunities that are all around you. They're not my ideas. I have no agenda whenever I'm working with somebody other than to go through their mind and see what it is that their life experiences have created for them and try and find 1, 2, maybe 3 things that they can monetize. And we start with the one that they want to do the most. A quick example, a friend of mine, she's a bus driver here in Utah. And she wanted to start a party bus, one of those big limousine buses, and take people to the jazz games or the hockey games or concerts or whatever. And she would, drop them off and then pick them up. I said, okay, I know that's what you want to do, but continue thinking about this list. I want you to make a list of everything. And before we even met the next time, she calls me and she said, Bart, I woke up at 3:00 in the morning. I'm so mad at you. Because she has to go drive a bus at 5. And she's like, I missed 2 hours of sleep because I couldn't go back to sleep. But she says, if I get my certificate and I have a bus that is my bus, I can be the driving test for other people that are getting their commercial driver's license. All she had to do was go take her test to get certified. I think it was like $400 or $500. And she could charge $250 a pop if they use her bus, or $200 a pop if they use their own vehicle. And I didn't think of that. She thought of that. I just greased the wheels and got them thinking. The hardest part is taking that first step and finding that first thing. Once you get started, then you're going to start to think like I do. And when things happen to you, you're going to like, okay, can I monetize it? What do I do? Do I monetize it or do I just let it go? And that you have to decide. There's things that I've thought about monetizing that I've said, I don't want to work that hard. And I let it go. 1994 was when I took the bungee jump to Japan, way before Top Golf ever hit America. I landed in Japan and I see these nets up everywhere, these big nets. And it's called F1. And it was a driving range, a Top Golf style driving range in Japan. That's where they came from. And the ball would come up out of the ground already on the tee, and you adjust the height of the tee with just a button. You hit the ball, it goes back down, picks up another ball. And you didn't rent time, you did it by number of balls you hit. And you had this little card, you'd buy like 100 balls or 1,000 balls or whatever, and you put this card in the machine. And before you know it, your card's empty. And you have to go buy another card. I'm like, this is a money-making machine. So I started doing my research, but I'm a 24-year-old kid. And I'm doing my research trying to figure out, I need to take this to America. I need to do this. And when I started looking at the numbers, there was just too many zeros behind those numbers. And I let it go. I was afraid and I didn't do it. And so I don't want you to think I hate my life or I'm discouraged with my life, but I often think, what if? What if I hadn't been afraid to do it? Would my life be better? Would my financial situation be better? I don't know.
Could it be worse?
I definitely think my financial situation would have been better, but would life have been better? Because we often think, okay, I want to be like Bezos, or I want to be like Elon Musk or Mark Cuban or whoever. But do you really want to go through what they went through to get where they are? Mark Cuban was sleeping on people's couches before he made it. Elon Musk still stays in the office. Is that the life you want? You think you want the money, but are you willing to do what it takes? And so whenever you're looking at these things, whenever you're looking at these ideas that come up, you also have to look, okay, are you willing to do what it takes to get that?
Mhm.
Sometimes you're going to say no. Sometimes you're going to say yes. And that's just what I've done all my life. The reason I'm a dog trainer is because me and my wife adopted an 8-month-old Rottweiler that was 90 pounds and didn't know the word no. And I've had dogs all my life, and I've always wondered, how am I going to monetize my mutt? How am I going to monetize my mutt? Well, my mutt came, and I was calling a buddy of mine, hey, how do you do this? Rex is doing this. Rex is doing this. And he said, Bart, we're doing a train-the-trainer program at our place. He had a big facility. You need to come do the train-to-trainer program. I did. It was a 2-month hands-on training bunches of dogs. They taught us how to train, but they also taught you about the business of dog training. Once I did that, I was like, okay, I trained my dog. Now I'm going to train other people's dog and get paid for it. If I'm going to do something for myself, I might as well get paid to help other people do it. And so that's what it's all about. And that's, like I say, the question is, what happens when what happens happens? Are you prepared? If you're not, talk to me. Let's see if we can get you there. And that's what the Side Hustle Samurai is all about. I do virtual events and I do live events of the Identify Your Ideal Side Hustle workshop. It's a workshop. If you need to get in touch with your feelings, it's not the place for you. It's a roll up your sleeves, open up your computer. You have these ideas that you've created. Now let's do research and see which one you want to try. We've got one now that show you the tools and the prompts for you to use AI in a way that's productive for you, that is going to save you time, money, and increase your chances of success. And so that's what I do. That's what it's all about. And that's me in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I think it's wonderful. Now, every day, I'm going to think about how can I monetize this, but also you having that confidence in telling your prosthesis, I'm your guy. It also requires confidence in yourself too. That's another big part of being an entrepreneur. And in addition to going after what it is you want and doing what you need to do, there's the confidence part. And if you don't believe in yourself, then how are we going to expect other people to do that, right?
Exactly. And it's one of those things that I do things before they even happen. Meaning, monetize your mindset. When that popped into my head, I went to GoDaddy, monetizeyourmindset.com. Is it available? Yes, it is. I had no idea what it was going to turn into. The fact that I turned something into a stream of income. Same thing with my legs, something I needed to do.
I really enjoyed having you here today. Thank you for sharing all of those amazing personal stories and then also letting us hear more about Monetize Your Mindset. And thank you for being hilarious. I would love for you to close us out with your pig poop story.
Okay. So like I said, my dad is a pig farmer, and I lived in a small town in southern New Mexico that there were more pigs than people in my town because of us. And any one time there was 19,000 pigs on our farm. We had 2,000 sows. Do you know what a sow is?
Is that a cow?
A sow is a mama pig.
Okay.
Okay. And so a mama pig can give birth 2 pigs a year.
Okay.
And on our farm, we averaged 9.97 pigs per litter. And if you do the math, that equals a lot of pig poop. We had these 3 man-made ponds called the lagoons that we would divert the stuff into, settling ponds. So it would go here one year, here the next year, and they just rotate and rotate and rotate for years and years. Now, when Dad got to about 64, 65, he decided it was time to shut down the pig operation and go in search of his next big thing. Have you heard the story of Acres of Diamonds?
No.
So Acres of Diamond is about someone who sold their farm and went in search of diamonds. They died broke and alone and never found their riches. The person who bought their farm was watering their camel in the brook that that ran through their property, and he looked down and there was a rock. It was a diamond. He found acres of diamonds in what was Ali Afed, the guy that sold him his farm. It was in his backyard. And so for us, our story is acres of pig poop. And Dad did the same thing, except he didn't sell it. He shut it down. He didn't sell it. He shut it down, and he went in search of his next big thing. He died at age 81, and he never found his next acres of diamonds. 2 years after his death, we sold the farm for $235,000, which was a fair price for the property at the time. 6 months after they purchased it, the new owners of our farm were leveling those man-made ponds. They had been dry on top for years, but this heavy grader was going across, and in the middle, it broke through the crust and sunk up to its belly in this black muck. They call in experts right there on the spot. The experts offered them $2,000 a ton for the stuff. That's $1 a pound for old pig poop. The farm that we sold for $235,000 was now worth over $1 million. 500 tons of old pig poop was acres of diamonds right under my dad's nose. So what I want to ask your audience is, what about you? Where are your acres of diamonds? Are you right on the verge of discovery? Are you right there almost ready to get it? Or are they right in your own backyard? Right there within your grasp, right there under your nose, and you're overlooking them like Ali Afed and my dad. And sometimes, you know what? They may even look like a pile of pig poop. Be aware of the opportunities that are all around you so that you can have those resources to deal with whatever happens when what happens happens. Because, my friends, it will happen. Life will happen. That's what my dad taught me even in his death, is don't overlook those opportunities that are right there.
I think that he would probably say that you were his diamonds.
I hope so. I've done some pretty stupid stuff.
Well, you take some, you throw some. Bart, thank you again so much. You've been amazing. Please tell everyone where they can find your wonderful book and your program and all your links, all those things you want to share.
So book is on Amazon, Monetize Your Mindset, or you can get it at bartmerrell.com. That's MERRELL, like the boot, like the shoe. My events, my live events, my virtual events, you'll find those at sidehustledojo.com. So anytime I have an event happening, registration page will be right there if you want me to help you find your ideal side hustle. Right now, I have the 25 successful side hustle ideas for 2025, and it's at youridealsidehustle.com. I actually have something amazing coming out next year. It is a quiz that you can take, and you're going to get the outcome of where are you at on your side hustle success meter. What do you need to do to get better at not even just side hustle, and building business, but even at some things in life. It'll give you a score, and it'll tell you how to improve your score. And that's going to be coming out the next year, and it'll be at the same place at youridealsidehustle.com.
Well, all of those links will be in the description for the episode. Thanks again so very much. And for the rest of you guys, thank you for joining us on Humanity 2.0 podcast. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to be kind to other humans.